Welcome back to this week's episode of Hotter Than Health. I'm so happy you're here with us today. We have a great episode put together. It's quick, it's simple, it's to the point, but these are the things that we need to be talking about during this time of year. We're going to be talking about specific supplements for the coming cold season. We're going to talk about best fruits and veg. We're going to also talk about why the sourdough trend blew up, and I think it's coming back. Maybe it's just coming back in my heart, but we're going to talk about it. I'm excited for today because it's been a little while since I've had consistency throughout the podcast, and one thing that I did get feedback on is, hey, we missed the interviews. And let me tell you, I do too. The interviews will be coming back. I scheduled 2 this morning, hoping for a third for later on in the month. Be on the lookout. You will not be disappointed. We're going to be talking all things red light therapy, thyroid, hormones, very exciting stuff. Without further ado, a little housekeeping. If you have not already and you're listening on Apple Podcasts, the little purple app on your phone, make sure you hit follow or subscribe and make sure you leave 5 stars as a review. It's a great way. It's really the only way to organically grow a podcast. And if you're listening on Spotify, hit follow. If you're listening anywhere else, thank you. Make sure you are following along. Let's get into today's episode. Let's address the initial change of seasons. Things are getting cold. If you're an Australia listener, I know things are starting to warm up for you. That's fantastic. It's getting cold over here. To this morning, it was, I think, 38 degrees when I woke up, and typically we have the patio door open, a little breeze comes in, but this morning it was far too cold. When we get into this time of year, oftentimes we notice several things. We notice maybe your skin is getting a little dry. Maybe your hair is getting a little dry. Maybe you are not craving the same types of workouts that you were in the summer. Maybe you're just moving a little bit slower, wanting to sleep a little bit more. That's totally normal. I think especially for women throughout our cycles of the month, we change, our needs change. The same goes for different times of the year. We are in fall. We're in the thick of fall. We're, a month and a half away from, maybe 2 months away from winter. We're in that transition period. It's starting to get darker earlier, starting to make us feel a bit more lethargic. Now, if you're like me, and you still want to be eating clean and eating fresh, but in my eyes, a salad in the winter doesn't feel right. Having some warmth in the salad, maybe there's steak, maybe there's a sweet potato, all that feels on par to me. But I think that trying to stick to a specific regimen that maybe you had during the spring or the summer, it could almost be not detrimental, but I think you would reach a stage of burnout and even so much as inauthenticity in your body. I think your body is going to be craving a certain thing, but if you're trying to force a certain style of eating, like maybe you're a cold smoothie in the morning, maybe you're an iced latte kind of girl, maybe you're a cold breakfast or salads for lunch, of course, listen to your body. I know that sounds so lame, but it is worth taking a look at some of the root, deeper vegetables that our body naturally craves and the earth naturally produces during this time of year. Eating within the seasons is just, it's a really simple, intuitive way of going. During this time of year, some of my favorite winter vegetables are basically any of the alliums, so onions, shallots, garlic, cooking with extra garlic, cooking with extra onion. I actually don't cook with salt, but I do cook with garlic, sometimes a little garlic powder, but other seasonings. It is a great way to reduce bloat as well. Avocados, so we're good there. Avocado toast all winter long. Beets, bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, carrots, cauliflower, celery root, fennel. Fennel isn't for everybody. It tastes a bit like licorice. Mustard greens, sweet potatoes, Swiss chard, turnip greens, winter squash. I'm going to give you two of my absolute favorite, top three on here. Top three for the winter months. And I'll tell you a little recipe of how I make it. Number one is bok choy. I love bok choy. It's basically just pure water and fiber with some minerals in it. It's not an incredibly nutrient dense vegetable, but it is so hearty. It's versatile. It's not super flavorful, so you can dress it up and down, but it feels good to eat, and I think it's beautiful. Bok choy, I will cut off the bottom and just let the leaves float around after they're rinsed. I'll do a soy or sesame garlic glazed salmon piece or shrimp or even steak. And then I'll saute some of the bok choy, maybe some sliced carrots, some shallots, broccoli, and you can just throw that all in a pan. It is the best flavor. Something about bok choy feels grounding, but it also feels light. So if you're like me and you don't just want to eat, shepherd's pie and potatoes all winter long, then bok choy is a great option. My next is the Swiss chard, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, but Swiss chard, it is just one of the most beautiful vegetables. And if you are listening and you live in Charleston, if you are walking around Hampton Park and you're walking the loop towards, I promise this applies to everybody, but you're walking around the loop, maybe you're in a public park where they have beautiful gardens, and or maybe you've just walked by someone's yard who has a nice garden. They look like softer, darker, shinier kale leaves, not as shaggy looking, a bit smoother, and their stems are what's beautiful. They're these dark green leaves, but the stems, especially for rainbow chard, the stems can be hot pink, bright yellow, orange, a green, a white. They are just the most beautiful, earthy type of vegetable. The way that I've always cooked them is a way that my dad showed when we were little. He would get a cast iron skillet, or any skillet you have, not toxic, and he would just flash saute them in either a tiny bit of butter or oil or whatever you have. And then he would let them simmer just for a second. And then he would put a balsamic glaze. And it was just the one ingredient balsamic. It was either a reduction or a little bit of a glaze, or sometimes he would just do a full, just balsamic vinegar. Little salt, little pepper. If you like it spicy, then you could do some cracked red pepper on top of it. And it is the earthiest, most delicious, deep, nutrient-dense green. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend looking up Swiss chard. If you're not super adventurous, it doesn't have a crazy bold flavor, but it does have a little more of the earthiness. Not so much as beets, but it does have that earthiness. Ooh, you look at it and it screams, I am going to nourish you. For those who, let's say, you love your blender bomb smoothie in the morning. I don't necessarily drink smoothies all the time. I do love blender bombs. And with their second round of investing, having gone through, it's a very exciting time to be promoting fruit. But winter fruits, of course, there's apples. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know that last year I was so good about, when I was in my old apartment, I was so good about buying delicious looking apples, slicing them up, putting some cinnamon on them, and then doing a bowl of Greek yogurt, putting some cinnamon in a pan with the apple slices, just heating those up, warming them up, and I would put them over my Greek yogurt. So it was essentially just like a zero fat breakfast with fiber, protein, and some good healthy carbohydrates. That was one of my favorite breakfasts. I need to get back into that. Like, you just cannot go wrong with hot apples. I'm not someone who is the biggest cider girl. I don't always snack on apples, but something about a hot apple just, it was so good. And I'm telling you, your house will smell it will smell like wintertime at Bath and Body Works. You can't describe it, and it's like the least toxic thing you can do to make your house smell amazing. There's also grapefruit. I'm fine with grapefruit. It's all right, grapefruit. Kiwis, kumquats. Also, not a huge fan of kumquats. They are just so bitter to me. Oranges, pears, persimmons, tangerines. I never prepared a persimmon. Probably had it. Don't really remember. But pears I can see also being good with cinnamon. And it's a good time to have oh my gosh, guys, oranges on hand. I am about 2 days out from my period, which means my brain is going in 500 directions and also no directions at all. It's going like in many different speeds at a very slow speed. Does that make sense to anybody? Likely not. Those are some of the vegetables. Kiwis, I would just wash them and eat them with the skin on. I'm telling you, it'll change your life. Apples, clementines, tangerines. Yum, yum, yum. Overall, it's just good to arm yourself with a few new recipes as we transition into the fall and the winter recipes. We sometimes get stuck in a rut, or we feel like we have to really like follow a huge recipe and make a big soup and do all these things. When in reality, all you really need to do is transition out some of the vegetables, some of the fruits, and you can keep your proteins and your grains essentially the same. But grounding yourself, encouraging meals that have some of these winter vegetables in them, I think would be a really nice way for your body to naturally and more intuitively adapt into fall. And what's great is in the fall and winter, we know that seasonal depression is more common during the colder months. It's less hours of sunlight. Vitamin D levels go down, which means immunity isn't as high. Sometimes our moods get lower. And overall, our immune system isn't as high functioning if we have lower levels of vitamin D. These super leafy greens like the bok choy and the Swiss chard are really, really awesome promoters of vitamin D. Highly recommend. Let's get into a little vitamin D, shall we? There's one or two things that I know I have spoken about on episodes in years past. When it comes to your supplements, there are several components that we don't always think about. One, we don't think about the efficacy of the actual supplement itself. Is it actually giving a effective dose? Does it do anything? Is there a way to gauge? And are you tracking? And then another thing is the consistency in which you take it. I have definitely fallen victim of this when I've had supplements in pill form. There is just something about it that I feel like if I just see it on my counter, I'm like, oh, yep, that is health. But then it's a matter of taking it. There's just something about it that I have to almost work extra hard, even though it's sitting out on my calendar. It's not as muscle memory to me yet. We've got these great Thorne branded omega-3 fish oils that are great, and I'm taking them at least a couple times a week, but there are some weeks where I'm not here for 7 days at a time, and then I just don't travel with them. And especially as the winter months go on, I want to make sure I'm getting these fats and these healthy things, those omega-3s that are going to keep like my skin feeling good, my hair, nails, my inflammation levels. But one in particular vitamin that we were talking about earlier was vitamin D. If you are someone who struggles with anxiety, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not prescribing here, but based on research that has been done out there, if you are someone that struggles with anxiety, seasonal depression, episodes of any sort, even if it's simply just extreme PMS, like I fully understand that sometimes when you are in PMS, that it sometimes feels like the world is collapsing. You feel like you could be popped with just the tiniest comment or needle, and you're extra sensitive. you don't need for all the days of the month to be that sensitive. Having a good vitamin D supplement is a really, really great way to ensure that your body is at least doing what it can to naturally support you. Now, there's another thing of whether or not that vitamin D is actually doing what it's supposed to do. When we talk about efficacy and we talk about absorption of these vitamins, we might be taking a ton of different vitamins, one, not knowing if they're working, and two, we might be taking these vitamins and they don't have the necessary vessels that they need to be absorbed properly. Vitamin D, there is research to indicate that, excuse me, got a little in my throat. There is research to show that vitamin D is better absorbed with vitamin K. Essentially, what vitamin D is doing is it ensures that your blood levels are all set to meet your body's demand. That's the role of, that's the role of vitamin D. But the role of vitamin D is one of its main functions is to also help with calcium levels. So it helps with calcium absorption. It helps taking calcium from the bone. When you don't have enough calcium, vitamin D maintains blood levels by drawing on the body's main calcium supply. And one of the big contributors to ensuring that vitamin D has that role is to promote it with vitamin K. So vitamin K, I just learned, regulates calcium in your body. It reduces calcification of soft tissues, and then it promotes calcification of bone, essentially making your bones stronger, and then it reduces calcification, like that buildup in your soft tissues where you want them to be extra soft. You don't want your knees to start having, a bunch of calcium buildup where they can't move and they crack and there's pain. The main takeaway of the vitamin D talk is if you are going to invest in any supplements over the winter time or even today, highly recommend looking into a high quality vitamin D that is supported by vitamin K. I know there are several brands out there that do this, and you can buy vitamin D and vitamin K as one supplement. That way it's more effective at being absorbed into your body. We don't need creaky knees. We don't need, weak bones, brittle bones. My sweet angel of a grandmother, she had a fall about a year and a half ago, and ever since then, it has the repercussions of that one singular fall, as we know as you get older, it's really changed everything. Not standing up, not walking around, not having the energy to do what she used to do. And if we can support our bones at a young age, get ahead of it, it's never too late. But life is precious. Movement is precious. Do what we can to support our bodies. I know I teased this in the beginning of the episode, talking about bread and the sourdough of it all that happened back in COVID. When COVID was happening, I was not in a headspace of, I'm going to stay at home and make sourdough. Like, my brain was going to, how am I going to make money? How am I going to pay my rent? What am I going to do? Like, going through the most trauma ever in the past, 2 years prior. I lost my mom, just on all these things. And I was like, this is not my priority, sourdough. But I would watch people on TikTok and I would watch people on Instagram and they were making all their sourdoughs. When I tell you that we have been making sourdough in this house for almost a year, I cannot go back. I will not go back. I have purchased one loaf of bread from the store for the house in 1 year. We love toast every single morning with really good butter. And there is something about knowing that the first thing that you put into your body in the morning, or the first food that you're eating throughout the day, is whole and only has a couple of ingredients and there's no preservatives. And it's the way nature intended it to be. There is something about toast that I am so passionate about lately, and I just had to share this with you all. When it comes to buying store-bought bread, if you're still in the stage of, okay, well, I'm not going to make sourdough, first of all, you must know. I must put this out there as a PSA. It is easy. You know, they say, oh, you've got to have a starter and you've got to cultivate the yeast and you've got to do all the stuff. Let me tell you, for 4 months, I only used instant starter. I went into the baking aisle. I got 4 or 5 packs of instant starter. It was just instant yeast. The only ingredient is yeast. It's $1 a packet. And then I got a thing of flour that lasted me at least 4 loaves of bread. And a loaf of bread in the store is like, what, $6? Maybe more? Who knows? All in all, I'm maybe spending $2.50 per loaf, a fat loaf of bread. It lasts us a week in the house, both eating it almost every single day. It's a big loaf of bread. Now, that within itself requires 3 ingredients: flour, yeast, salt, of course, water. Flour, salt, yeast. You don't need a specific measuring scale. I got one because we started making our own starter. It's easy. I think that the reason why I was so against it was because I was just like, God, that sounds so time consuming. That sounds so obnoxious. But let me tell you, there is something about waking up, knowing the ingredients in your bread, knowing that when you toast it, it is not burning up all these chemicals. You're not going to be feeding your kids all of these preservatives. Let's talk about some of these additives that are thrown into breads. There is potassium bromate, one of the main ingredients in a lot of shelf-stable breads. It's used as a dough conditioner, which shorten the dough rising times, increase shelf life, and make the dough easier for machinery to process. So it gives it that almost, if you've ever touched bread, it really is this dense, fluffy, you push into it and it bounces back kind of thing. That's what I see as happening with this. Then there is azodicarbonamide, which is another conditioner. It's considered safe in the U.S. at up to 45 parts per million, but is banned from the U.S. from use in Europe because studies show it could cause asthma or allergic reactions. And we wonder why people have gluten intolerance, and we wonder why people feel so crappy after eating one sandwich. We go to Europe for 1 week and eat only pasta and bread, come back feeling lean, mean fighting machine, and then we get here and we have one kale salad with like half a crouton. That crouton has the azodicarbonamide, and we feel like garbage because most of the ingredients that we use are banned in other countries. Then there's DATEM, DATEM, which also stands for diacetyl tartaric acid esters of monoglycerides. No, thank you. This sounds like exactly like something I do not want to eat. It's another dough conditioner for volume and uniformity. Here's how I see that for DATEM. When I make a loaf of sourdough bread, every single loaf comes out looking a little different. Granted, that's, how you slice it, how you do all these things. But there's not really one uniform shape that it ends up being in perfectly every single time. If they're going to package something and sell something on a shelf and be able to case it in the same packaging, spend all this money on this plastic packaging that they're going to uniformly line the rows with, they've got to ensure and know that each bread loaf is going to come out looking the exact same way. So if you're buying bread that looks super uniform, it is all the exact same on the shelf, it's been shoved in these plastic bags, there's a likelihood that it's got this diacetyl tartaric acid, DATEM. It's considered safe by the FDA, but a 2002 study on rats showed heart muscle fibrosis and adrenal overgrowth. Fabulous. Then there's partially hydrogenated oils. Yes, trans fats lurk in the bread aisle too. Make sure they don't jump out, blah, 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 blah. Mono and diglycerides derived from either animal or plant sources. This is for texture, volume. There's emulsifiers to make things smoother. And then there's calcium propionate, a preservative that inhibits mold and bacteria. Again, if they want to sell something on a shelf, they have to add something to it to ensure that even if oxygen gets to the bread, it's not going to go moldy, because you know that bread is on the shelf for weeks. Of course, there's high fructose corn syrup, which has had an incredible correlation, and people are going to kill me for saying this, but it's when you go to these third-party sources and when you don't just watch the news or follow the media for the information, you will see all of the studies that are shown that go to artificial colors, artificial high fructose corn syrup, amongst other things, that are directly correlated to the increase in risk for autism and other hyperactive disorders within children. And it's just something that I'm spending approximately 15 cumulative minutes. Yes, for 45 minutes when I have to be at the house when it bakes. Yes, but I can do, if you're working remote, it will likely take about 15 minutes out of your day to make this loaf of bread. And then you are not having the artificial sweeteners, artificial colors, high fructose corn syrup. If you're someone who struggles with gluten, if you're someone who wants to start the day with bread but aren't sure how to make that healthy, this is your chance. Get a big bowl. If you have an oven, fabulous. And honestly, this is what I might do for holiday gifts. Give all of my neighbors like a small loaf of sourdough. Look at that. I've figured it out. That's great. That is exactly what I'm going to do, because people are going to be sick of puppy chow. They're going to be sick of the peanut butter balls, or at least I would. I'm going to absolutely bring them a loaf of sourdough. Look at me go. I also just wanted to make sure that there are some words that are going to be on bread packaging that we want to make sure you understand. You're not often going to see only the word flour on your bread. Like if you were to put an ingredient list on my bread, it would say instant yeast, organic all-purpose flour, water, and salt. But on your packaging, on the packaging at the store, it might say enriched flour, which is not whole wheat flour. It's refined flour that's been enriched to make it easier to chew. So it's the whole grain was processed out of it, and then it was stripped of its nutrients. And then they add for the enrichment, which is mandated by the government. It's not like, oh, make you healthier. It's the government is saying you have to add vitamin B1, vitamin B2, which is thiamine and riboflavin, and then niacin, folic acid, and iron. Then there's multigrain, organic, unbleached, unbromated. I don't even know what that is. We won't get into it. Here's a couple ways to ensure that you are choosing the healthy bread. Make sure the first ingredient is whole grain, 100% whole wheat. Make sure the first ingredient. Don't just believe the front of the packaging. Turn it over immediately. We will be conned every single time if we only look at the front of the packaging. The first ingredient must say it's whole grain. The bread should be made with 100% whole grains. The fiber count, okay. The fiber count should be 2 or more grams per ounce. Sometimes it's 2 grams per one slice, but not always. My rule of thumb is for every 20 grams of carbs, there should be about 4 or 5 grams of fiber. So on the back, if it says 20 grams of carbs, carbohydrates, we wanted to say 4 or 5, at the very least 3 grams of fiber. The less fiber there is per carbohydrate, the more processed it is. And then, of course, could be harmful to your health if we're not avoiding the additives as mentioned above, which again, potassium bromate, azodicarbonamide, datum, hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrup, and then artificial flavors and colors. Whew. Man, there is something that I have been it makes me feel like a house is a home when you make bread. It feels great. I feel accomplished. There's something that I feel, look, I understand that I do not have children right now, and I have the luxury of having a bit more flexibility with time. But I'm telling you, if you've got 15, set your timer on your clock for a couple hours of your day. If you have 2 hours worth of errands, if you have 2 hours worth of meetings, then you can let the bread sit. Then it will rise. And then you have 5 minutes of work just flipping it around one time. And then it's not hard. It's actually very simple, but it seems daunting. I wish I could take away the daunt. I wish I could, but I cannot. You will just have to trust me. First time might take you about 20 minutes. Second time, and if you're interested, let me know, and I'll send you over the YouTube of the 4-ingredient instant sourdough that I make. I'm telling you, it's so easy. And I feel like I need to, it's a secret, this little video. But the video, it's 4 steps. I just don't understand how it's so easy. Oh my God, and the girl who made it is called Liza's Delicious Recipes. Really, I wanted to get this episode out there to say thank you for listening. That's a little bit of information on winter foods, winter fruits, vegetables, and what are some of the ingredients to avoid in store-bought bread. Huge fan of sourdough making. And I'm making my own starter right now, so hopefully I'll be able to continue. So far, I've tried 3 different times to make starter, and it's died every time. We're working on it over here. Be on the lookout for more interviews coming up so soon. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to you next Thursday. If you're like me and you are a girl of your morning routines, you've got it down, this is your chance to start your fall and winter right. We know that our immune system starts to get a little bit rocked. We're having more parties. We're not working out as much. We're a little out of our routine with travel that's going to start coming up, and Halloween and candy and sugar. We know immunity isn't going to be our best, so arm yourself in the morning with Organifi's greens. I take the Organifi greens juice every single morning. It is the best way to start my day. I have multiple different glass containers that I travel with the greens in so that I do not miss a day. If you want if you want 20% off of the Organifi greens or any of their products, you can also try their fantastic collagen, their protein powders, and any of their dopamine hitting products that are on the shelves right now. Get 20% off. Use the code HTH at checkout. Again, that is for Organifi.com/HTH for 20% off. Start your morning with greens like me.